Okay, here we see one of the horizontal stabs in one elevator. As you can see, we've chosen to use two elevator servos. We don't have them right next to one another. There's some reasons for where these are. This one is a little bit difficult because you don't want to get back into the wing tube, or rather the tail tube, which runs right here, but we want to get close to it. So this box, you want whatever distance here and here to be relatively close to the same. We've got this servo out as far as we can get it, and yet still not poke through the top. We actually use little servo boxes. This is nothing more than a piece of 1/8" balsa all the way around, with a notch cut out with a piece of 1/8" hard ply glued into it, and then the entire box is slid. This is nothing more than a piece of 1/8" balsa all the way around, cut out with a little tab inserted of hard ply, put in there for our servo to sit in. This entire box assembly is made before we sheet this tail. We do the same thing with the wing and the aileron servos. We slide it in there, we sand it down smooth, flush with the foam, and then when we sheet our balsa, we've eliminated once again that little end grain appearance here, and we've also made a box that's very difficult to rip out. This thing, it's in there forever. You won't have servos coming loose with this design. We've also, rather than using the 1/4" thick square blocks for our arms to go in for control, we're actually using a dowel, 3/4" dowel. It's, as you can see, flat in this area here. So it's rounded with one flat side. The reason why this is flat right here is we've sanded that in so it can butt right up against our leading edge of the elevator right here. It helps spread the load out a little bit better. It's just an excellent design. We've glued these in with 30-minute epoxy and some micro balloons. The purpose of the micro balloons is so we don't have to use so much epoxy because it's weight, but we have to have enough glue to hold it in there very securely. We've also laid this down flat on the table on a drill press, and we've drilled this out. We've drilled that out for a number, I think it's a 1032 all thread screw available at McMaster-Carr. And we tap that out. Actually what we do is we drill the hole, and then we put thin CA in the hole to harden it. Harden the balsa wood, or I'm sorry, harden the dowel. And then we tap that out for that number 10 screw. It goes right in there, and we screw that screw down until it's almost all the way in. Then we put maybe a little bit of CA on the screw and finish it off. We have to be careful not to poke it through to the other side, because this dowel goes all the way to the skin on the other side here. You don't want to be poking through there. Then of course we have the same thing here. Notice the caps, 1/8" cap in this area. It's put on after everything is sheeted and ready to go. Notice the cap here. We've actually put this cap on before we glued the leading edge on. So after we cut this out, break it away from what will be the horizontal stab in the manufacturing process, after we've cut it out, we go ahead and glue this piece on, and then we'll glue on our leading edge. And then we have our cap on the outside as well. Another trick that we use is where we have the hinges. All of these hinges are installed before the bevel was made. It's easy to draw a center line. It's easy to use. We use a hinge slotter. It's easy to use the hinge slotter. It holds it all in alignment for us, and it's just something that we do. Cuts out some guesswork later on trying to nail that bevel with the hinger. A couple things to show you here. We use the same trick in this area here that we used on the canopy attachment. It's a piece of dowel. You can just make out the little piece of brass in there. It's just a little brass insert that is through drilled for a 440 screw, so the screw slips right through it. No, correct that. It's a 1/2 inch dowel that's drilled down for our brass insert. The brass insert is installed, but we don't remove the threads. The threads stay 440, they're in there. Once again, the screw is going to screw down into that, and then it's going to go into the tail tube and hold it fast into the fuselage and into the tail, and our screw will be flush with the surface. We've also got the same arrangement here. This is where our anti-rotation L bracket goes that we talked about on the fuselage. As you can see, it's cut out here as well. We'll get a side view. You can see our block. You can see it's cut out or relieved in this area so that the L bracket is able to sit firmly on something hard so we don't have crushing and moving around. And then we've got a little brass insert. Once again, the threads are not removed from here. This is a 440 screw internal, and the insert is CA'd in both cases. We always CA these in. They really shouldn't go anywhere, but that's just a safety precaution. And we have our hole for our servo wires, and then our tail tube hole. We choose to glue the butt rib on, the wings and the tail before we sheet. What we do is we'll fit this all up. Just the foam core will be fitted to the fuselage. So the fuselage has to be done before we can do this, or framed anyway. We will fit it, sand the foam core as necessary to get the alignment left and right, forward and aft, up and down. Get all of that where we want it. We will epoxy this butt rib into place, and after this is epoxied into place, we'll come back, we'll sand that down flush with the foam core. Be very careful not to remove material from the foam core. Sand it down and then sheet right over it, and then what we have done is we've eliminated this end grain again. We've also put this glue joint over top of this one for much better strength. It's no longer a butt joint. It is now an overlapping joint, much stronger. Rudder is made basically like the elevators are made. It starts off as one piece with a vertical stab, and we come in and we cut it out somewhere in the manufacturing process. Remember, we're going to sheet this piece here before we glue our leading edge on. That gives us a little better shot at making everything work a little more cleanly. Really the only thing to note here is basically just how it's put together. You've got your end cap. It's put on kind of late in the process. We've got our trailing edge, which we have to glue up to fabricate. We've got our little piece at the end here just to sort of show you how that all works. One area that is custom for each aircraft is the bottom cap. This bottom cap, the thickness of it, is determined by how thick our tail post is. When we're all done making the airplane or making the fuselage, there's a distance that this is going to be thick at the trailing edge here. Whether it's a 1/16 of an inch, an 1/8 of an inch, or 1/4 of an inch. It just depends on how it all lands and how much sanding you want to do to make this straight. We want this to be a straight line from the front to the back. And sometimes we have to add a little material here to make that happen.